Hi everyone, some gamer dude here. I haven't talked about Force of Will for quite some time, have I? I didn't enjoy Tag, and while I liked ADW, the power levels did significantly damage my ability to enjoy the game. That said, Rebirth of Legend, Saga 2.5, was one of the more satisfying sets in a long time, proving you can bring a lot of happiness in a small package. Very few cards, support for decks that need it, from Saga 1, and reprints of the rulers from Saga 1. So let's talk Mikage Seijuro. I really like the ideas of this card in EDL. It was a fun concept, but it felt like multiple decks crammed together without something to tie them together, much like the original Rezard in a way. Since then, Mikage has gotten a bit of direct support over Rebirth of Legend and the 7th, 3 cards that are very direct support, and 4 I believe are intended to go with him. Let's talk about them, starting with the big star of the support package, one of my favourite male designs in the game, Dracula. Dracula Reborn Vampire is a 400/400 vampire for darkness, surprisingly without quick cast. He has flying and barrier from light and 2 effects. Firstly, when he goes to the grave from the field or from the field to the grave, he doesn't lose the +100/+100 counters on him. Secondly, at the end of the turn following him being sent to the grave from the field, he revives with 2 +100/+100 counters. The application is obvious. Sack him, draw a card via Mikage, give the +100/+100 counters to something else. Then Dracula revives at the end of your opponent's turn, and you get a big flying beat stick that you can sack again if they try to get rid of him, or you can just sack him afterwards for your own effects. I'm not sure all of this was necessary. I think on a fairer card, you would have had just the revival clause, but in current Force of Will, it's necessary, and I do think it's a nice reference to Dracula growing in power. Dracula is a good card that makes Mikage consistent, something he needs in current Force of Will, and brings a lot of pressure off of cards like Lonely Vampire and Frightened Villager. Frankly, I think to be worthwhile, Mikage needed to be able to use his effect each turn, which Dracula provides. Dracula is an alternative card though, and his bottom half is the Jewel of Darkness, a chant for Darkness 6 with Remnant that has its cost reduced by 1 for every +100/+100 counter on it. It's a board wipe for your opponent's side of the field. Destroy all of their J Resonators. Over 3 turns, if the game goes that long, you can get this down to just Darkness. It's a board wipe. You lose Dracula. I'm not really sure what to say about it. It's far from a bad card, and can help in a dire situation, but generally Dracula feels more beneficial to me. But that's a recurring theme with a lot of the alternative cards. The alternative part, the chant, is circumstantial. The resonator half is generally pretty darn good. Next up we have Frailer Dark Huntress, 700/700 with swiftness and Bane for 2 darkness. I don't really know why she needs that stat line, Curse of Power Creep, but it's where we are right now. She can tap to give a J Resonator -600/-600, or as revenge, kill a Resonator. She's by far the best card with the revenge mechanic because she's reusable. She isn't just, oh hey, a token, or whatever isolated demon's doing. She's useful by herself. 700/700 Swiftness Bane is great by itself. 600/600 is good for getting rid of something small, or pushing a battle in your direction, but gets better with revenge, and she keeps doing it. She can help you every time you sack Drac. I think that's something that really bugs me about both Frailer and Dracula. They feel like the support Mikage needed in the first place. In retrospect, I think Mikage's EDL package feels dated power-wise, in terms of effects. Like it's somewhere closer to New Valhalla or early Alice Origins, not late Alice Origins or Saga Cluster. I don't think that really goes away either. Alvarez, the True Demon Castle, is a weird card, honestly. It's not directly Mikage support, it's not really tied to the themes of Mikage, but the intentions are clear. It's Dracula's castle, it's darkness themed, and produces tokens. An addition for darkness that produces two 200/200 flying vampire tokens and gives non-darkness J resonators -200/-200. Mikage doesn't really run non-darkness resonators, or at least he doesn't have a reason to yet, and the 2 tokens give him further sack targets. So while not directly tied to Mikage, I think it fits well. The -200/-200 can actually help a lot if you get a couple out. Essentially makes 1-drops die the moment they hit the board, unless they're darkness. To go along with this, we have Abdul Alvarez, the Possessed, a 300/300 human Cthulhu resonator for darkness. I think he's more of a 4-drop though due to his awakening for Darkness 1. At the end of turn, he destroys all J resonators with 200 or less attack. If he's awakened as an enter, he takes away all counters from your opponent's J resonators, then they gain -800/-800 until end of turn. With Alvarez, unless they've got some massive bombs out or power buffs, either all of your opponent's J resonators are dying due to the -800/-800, or are going to die. I don't think the power buffs are all that uncommon though. It's at least matchup dependent. Some might say that Jewel of Darkness and Eternal Resonance make these cards unnecessary. It's literally the 3rd board wipe in the deck if you're running the Elegant Mikage Sisters. I get that. Actually, it is. But honestly, Alvarez can help a lot by keeping things down or straight up killing 1-drops the moment they hit the board. Abdul capitalizes upon that. Both of the other board wipe cards are alternatives where the resonators are far more useful. Finally, Abdul's ability to remove counters, even if it's just from J resonators, makes it very useful too. There are situations where you need to strip them of counters to strip abilities or weaken their board state enough to deal with it. Abdul does a great job there. In the 7th, we got Graveyard Keeper of the Demonic World, and wow does this start tying things together. 100/500 Demon for Darkness with Bane. Whenever 1 or more +100/+100 counters are put on him, he gives you life equal to his defense and creates a 400/400 zombie token. So let's set a scene. Summon Keeper. Okay, you have a hefty blocker with Bane. That's great by itself really. He won't die to 1-drops. Next turn, Dracula. Sack Drac. Draw a card. Place the counters on Keeper. Gain life. Keeper becomes beefier and you create a 400/400 token. Then, as the game goes on, bring out Lord of the Undead. Create a token via Drac-Sack. Gravekeeper gets bigger. Use Frightened Villager. Then use Deadly Dive to sack all of your zombies for the win. You only need 5 zombies with 800 or more attack on board for this to happen too. So it's not all that slow or hard, but I think there is more potential for this card in a slightly different build. I'll talk about that another time though. The next part doesn't really look like Mikage support, but it's got some funny interactions and plays nicely with some older cards that could be a little bit rough to play. Kirik's Hunting Grounds. I liked this one from the moment I saw it, but I don't think it hit me how good it actually was. An addition for fire. When your J Resonator hits the board, you force 1. I'll cut to the chase. Dracula. Every time he comes back, he gains 2 +100/+100 counters. Then he force 1s. You only have a 17% chance of hitting 1 on the D6. 83% of the time, you will hit double the counters or better. 4 becomes 8, becomes 12, and so on. With flying, he might be able to push the game alone, but it gets better. Tokens get bigger. Gravekeeper triggers himself on enter. Deadly Dive gets easier. Lunar Sword is a sure thing now. That was the card I was talking about. You have a super easy source of 2 +100/+100 counters with Hunting Grounds. Even if you really need to hit a stone that can produce fire turn 1 and a Hunting Grounds turn 1, Hunting Grounds feels like a surprisingly good card that I haven't even touched on completely because another deck likes this card too. I'll talk about that another time as well. Related to Hunting Grounds is Raging Ogre, an 800/800 Ogre for fire and 2 void. If a Resonator has hit your grave that turn, his cost is reduced to fire, and if a +100/+100 counter is put on him, he gains swiftness and precision for the turn. You realistically need Hunting Grounds for this card to function correctly, unless you have something awkward to suck twice or get a Resonator to die in combat before you summon him. You need the Resonator loss to make him cheaper, then the counters to make it worth it. Realistically, you use Mikage to lower the cost, give the counters somewhere else, then have Hunting Grounds give him the counters. But honestly, the card isn't worth it. It synergizes with the deck, sure, but it's literally just a beta. You have board control, so you don't strictly need the precision. It has to hit over things, which at a probable base of 1000/1000, it might not be able to do. That really rams home the power creep, huh? 1000/1000 might not be enough. In some circumstances you have to hit past 2000/2000. But at that point you need Light to deal with additions and Abdul to remove counters from Resonators. I think there are better cards to run that have an easier time of handling these types of issues. I don't think Ogre is quite worth running. So there we have the Mikage support. Does it make him better? Very much so. But I'd argue he's closer to the power levels he should have been when he first came out, not the power levels he needs to be for competitive play. Still, a lower tier, he's not on the level of Heroes, Demonic Worlds, Violet, or Tag, but he feels complete now. So long as he sticks to his tier level, and yes, I am suggesting Smogon-style tier systems here, I think he's become a lot more fun to play. I think he arguably got the biggest boost from the EDL rulers in Rebirth of Legend, but he also needed it the most. Till next time, this has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.